from shadow, sealed in truth, ancient blood, but faith rooted proof. History whispers, legends pretend. She chose the light where darkness ends. Eyes that see what most can't find. Gift of foresight, disciplined mind. Cross held steady, heart on guard. Truth cuts clean when nights get hard. She reads the silence, feels the room. Past and present starts.
Hello, everybody. Danielle's not here. Danielle's busy with her family, but I'm here. You got my ugly mug to look at. So let me go ahead and introduce everybody. Michael, what's your full name and a little bit about yourself?
Which Michael?
Oh, there's Michael Kopf. Okay. Okay.
I can be Michael too.
Okay. Okay, Michael Waterman, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Michael Waterman. I'm an author. I'm on Today's Witch magazine, today'switch.net. I also have my own book coming out, which is called The Serpent Wore Two Crowns. And I am also a very well-known Egyptian Kemetic high priest. And I have my own business. I am the wizard of Phone a Wizard.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you. And Michael Kopf, the other Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Kopf. I am a metaphysical paranormal investigator and author and experiencer, Reiki master, and a man of many hats, and privileged to be here.
Fantastic. All right. Steve Ward.
And I am not really Michael. I am Steve Ward. I live in Point Pleasant, West by God, Virginia, on the same road that the Scarberries and the Mallets were chased by the Mothman on November 15th, 1966. I work at the Mothman Museum on Saturdays. I am preparing for the Mothman Festival, speaking and being the MC and so forth. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm getting my critters ready for the TNT hayride, which have been buried in the basement all year, and they've been very lonely.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Sue McClure.
Hey everyone, I'm Sue McClure. I'm a meditation specialist. I spend a majority of my time either homeschooling or educating people, and I also help people with different PTSDs. Many have contacted me from after leaving the military. I also help people with their nightmares, their shadow works, and any health problems and whatever ails them. So I'm there for people, and I operate out in St. Louis, Missouri.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sue. Sage Gatto.
Hi guys, I'm Sage Gatto. I'm a paranormal investigator from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm also a psychic medium and history nerd on the Civil War.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sage. And Donnie Cho is our tech support, and he's a host of the show too. Donnie Cho, if you're listening, go ahead and start that video. You'll see me in action. And then we can talk about it and make fun of it.
All right. Can we make rude noises?
Yeah.
We are now Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I want to be Crow.
I want to be the gumball machine.
Up on Omni Max.
Ooh, spooky.
That's done.
That's Ash.
Beautiful.
And if you guys get scared, you know.
It would take a lot to get me scared, believe me. Hmm.
And to use the little kids laughing.
Yeah.
Pioneer, California is located in Amador County. Originally known as Pioneer Station, it was an exchange point for Pony Express riders. But even before that, Pioneer was just another spot passed by thousands of people immigrating to the West via covered wagon. As time went on, Pioneer grew, but it grew slowly. Despite its being in a remote area, today Pioneer boasts a population of just over 6,000 people.
And Pioneer burned up in that big fire, and there was a lot of lives lost during that fire.
That's not good.
I know.
I tell you a thing to listen to at night too.
And this house that we investigated here actually burned down in the fire.
Oh God.
Almighty.
And right now we're here in the town of Pioneer, and right behind me is a house in which the occupant said there's a small child. They believe it's a small girl. The small girl actually appears around the wall while they're watching TV or watching a video movie. And when they look at the small child, she disappears. And one time, the male occupant, and he's an adult, was laying in bed, and there was an imprint of a small child laying next to him. And he could actually feel this small child laying next to him. And another time, in the kitchen, the blinds shake. So we're here tonight, HPI, Haunted Paranormal Investigations International, are here to discover what is actually haunting this house. And could it be that they have a small child? The occupants have a small child, he's a small boy, and could it be poltergeist activity where the small boy is somehow emitting energy within the house causing this activity? So we'll find out tonight. He's one of our researchers, and he discovered a lot of information about Pioneer, and I'll let David go ahead and tell us about that.
I'll keep it fairly short because I could go on and on and on and on. Probably the most important thing was Highway 88 out here was originally the immigrant trail where all the immigrants came through. A lot of Mormon immigrants came through here. You got to see that. I'm assuming that's why Zion Park was named what it is. There's all kinds of fabulous stories about what happened along this trail. Pioneers facing all kinds of disasters, children dying. That was not an uncommon occurrence. In fact, if you go 25 miles up the road here, there's a grave marker. I think it's called Maiden's Grave. And for many, many, many years, they thought that was a girl that had died. And the mother had come back looking for her. Couldn't find the grave. Some townspeople jumped in to help. They found a grave, but never tied it together. Come to find out, some further research, and some people actually went out and did some archaeology research, and they found out there was actually a small boy that was buried in the grave. And sometime later, they found another grave about 2 miles north that was a little girl. So that just kind of, even if that's not related, just kind of illustrates the fact that, you know, that could have happened anywhere along this trail. You know, child dies, you've got to keep moving. The wagon train can't stop. So.
With us, and we've had some really good experiences with that, where Paul has asked someone to say his name, and they do. And we had a situation in San Mateo, where we were doing an investigation, and one of the psychics that was there, Renee, was asking if the person was afraid to cross over, and they said yes. And she asked them why, and they said judgment, and then they said day of reckoning. So that was really like one of the. Not a ghost.
Where are those toys?
You want to play with us? Toys out. Something?
Can you please come here and play with me with this truck? See, push it back. Push the truck back to me. Have you seen these kind of toys before?
I can't tell. Flashing inside by itself.
I'm not sure why, but my camera keeps trying to focus on something just to the left of that lamp. It's going in and out of focus without me doing
Here?
in the corner.
Why is that little fingers off the button? You just hit it automatically, and then it goes off.
Can you stay tall?
It was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. When you guys, well, I was just asking Michael Kopf on the comments if he makes videos of the investigations that he's on. And what was your answer, Michael?
I used to make videos, but now, because I go to some places so often, I just kind of go for the experience and not usually thinking about documenting it. But when it's the first time going there, I do go through and either take a lot of photos or take a video, so it kind of preserves what it was like when I was there. So if something was to happen and someone goes, "Oh, what was this room like?" I can always go, "Oh, I was there. Let me shoot you the video." Or let me shoot you the photos that I have, and you know, if you want to recreate it, you can. Because I used to do work where we documented like cracks in the wall, so it's like I had a lot of photos of different angles of every room, and so I kind of carried that into the paranormal, where I can go to a small location and end up with like 300 photos because most of it is documenting what the house looked like or the location looked like. So somebody goes, oh, here's this in this room. And I can go, well, that's not on my photo of that room.
Yeah, I believe in being transparent. So on every single investigation, we did videos, we wrote articles about it. So all that information was out there for the public. Um, so Steve, the other Michael, Sue, Sage, do you believe in being transparent like that and putting that information out there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah, if I actually come across something, I mean, if I happen to have my camera going or whatever, because I'm always taking pictures, especially when I go on vacation and stuff. And maybe once in a blue moon, there would be something off screen. I'm not entirely sure what it is.
In the book that we all worked on with Tim Schwartz, The Persistence of Ghosts, I talk about the ghost in the house I grew up in. And his name was Frankie Cohen. And he fell out of a tree in my yard and died in my brother's room upstairs. And so I'm very much aware of ghosts, and I'm very attuned to their energy.
Yeah, just a lot of times things happen so quickly, you don't have a chance to turn your camera on.
Well,
You
back
know,
in the
I, and
60s,
I talked
I
to a
was just
lot
going
of
to say, back in the 60s, we had a 16 millimeter camera, and I didn't have access to that because I was a kid.
Mm.
And I talked to a lot of ghost hunting groups on Facebook and everything else, and there are some who don't document anything. So they'll say, "We went on an investigation last night. Oh, it was so exciting." Okay, anything else? Can you tell us where it was at? What was the story behind it? What happened with your investigation? What was the conclusion? There's nothing. It's just like it was exciting. Oh, we can't talk about it because it's confidential. Even if it's confidential, leave the occupant's name out and
Yeah.
write the article.
Right.
And yeah,
I worked
You,
with
you
Long
can work
Island.
around it.
I worked with Long Island paranormal investigators, and they didn't document anything. We,
oh,
we, we went. We were all full of. Long Island is full of spooky houses, not just the Amityville Horror House,
Yeah.
which isn't really anything anyway. It's a baloney. Um, I worked there with Hans Holzer, and we went there with all the devices and machinery that both Sage and I'm sure Michael and you
Yep.
you also do, and there was nothing there. Nothing. There was no paranormal activity, but the family got a lot of money for saying there was.
Yeah. See, that's the
And
double-edged sword of the paranormal, because there's definitely been times where me and my friends will go out and the group will go out and we'll try documenting everything we're recording, taking pictures, everything that you can imagine, and we'll get like very little to any activity on camera. But the second we go back and just kind of go in with no equipment, no cameras, and nothing, just to kind of take in, and it's when we had the most active
Mhm.
nights. And it's like when I have the working theory that they don't like to be seen or don't want to be seen. So when cameras are around, you get less activity, or the activity will be behind the camera where you see it, but the cameras don't. And that's why I always feel like, for people to become true believers in the paranormal, it's one of those things where you kind of have to experience it yourself, because it's very, very, very rare that it'll actually be captured on camera.
I agree with
Sage,
Paige.
I was gonna say, Sage, you make a point of not liking the cameras. I kind of sometimes wonder, if we're dealing with the spirit of like the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
they have no concept what we're holding up and filming with,
Yep.
so they will be freaked out and be
Yep.
like, "Oh, what is this magic? What is this, evilness that you're talking into and walking around with?" And
Yep.
so, I think that plays a part in it, actually.
Yeah, I had to lead my investigations like that, and when I'm on the battlefields, even though I'm just like walking around like a spirit box, I had to like take a second to explain to them what the hell it is that I'm holding, how it works, and why I'm trying to talk to them. And the second I get done explaining all that and I turn it on, I can have like full blown conversations with multiple of the spirits, because they understand like, oh, this is just a way for you to talk to me.
I was on an investigation in Egypt, at Abu Simbel, the Ramesseum, the funerary temple of Ramses II. And the camera and all the equipment went flying everywhere. Whoever it was that was in that temple was very uncomfortable and did not want anything recorded. And I think they actually knew what it was. It spooked the hell out of me. I got to tell you the truth. I was
Yeah.
scared, and I'm not usually scared in Egypt.
In one of my investigations, in fact, I'm writing about it in my next book. Um, there was this one house that was built over a Japanese internment camp.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And we had a seance in there, and I mean, the shit went down. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
pounding on the walls and everything. And we had this all recorded, but the occupants, they they said, okay, first they said, we just want to borrow the tape and everything. I said, oh, yeah, sure. They wouldn't give it back to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, because they go, it's our house and everything else. And they thought they're going to make $1 million from that video. But I mean, it's whatever. But it was such good evidence that was on film.
And there's something to, Sage talking about battlefields, like the Civil War. I was watching a documentary where they were talking about Brady and the others that would go out and photograph, and the horror that, it brought to the American people, because this is the first time you got to see what it looked like on a battlefield after the battle.
Yep.
But then they said, well, we found out from letters, Brady and a few others, they would move the bodies and they
Yep.
would pose the bodies in certain places to make the picture more. And so I was like, so now we can't use these photos as evidence
Yep.
because they've been altered. How many were altered? Were they all altered? Were only some of them altered? It's like now we have to question all of that, and it's like it gets to a point to where it's like, how do we determine where to go, what to see, because everything has been altered. The landscape's been altered. Now the evidence has been altered. It's like, how do we know where things were back then to go to now?
Yep. That's a good point. Like, especially in Gettysburg, I'm sure, I don't know if you guys seen or not, the famous picture from Brady about the sharpshooter Devil's Den. With modern technologies, they've actually been able to identify that soldier that's in the picture and found out that he was actually killed like 150 yards away from that spot. And they drug his body over there and posed him to make him look like a sharpshooter when he actually wasn't.
That's terrible.
Wow.
The thing is that if you document it, even if it's not all on video, but you document it on paper, step by step, it makes it more credible. Because as we know, there's so many people out there that'll go on an investigation and just spin a bunch of tales.
Yep.
And if you're going to make up something, and you're going to, then you have to fictionalize the documentation. But if you're actually there and doing it, it seems like it would be a little easier to actually document it.
No, it's true. And, there's also the fact of looking at Billy the Kid's photo.
No, I was going to bring that up. That's
a good point. Yeah.
They all thought, oh, he was left-handed. Then they go, oh, wait, this is a mirror image because of the way the photo is. He was actually this hand. And so now it makes you question, when you look at the battlefield photos, are they mirror images? In which case, are we needing to flip our perspective 180 and go, now the picture makes sense?
Sure.
That's a good point, because even with documentation on the battlefield, you have two sides of the story with veterans that survived. There's always two different stories, and especially with Little Round Top and the 20th Maine. Colonel Chamberlain claims that the Alabamians never broke his line, but the colonel of the regiment that was attacking his position is hell-bent on saying that he broke the line and moved a good portion up the hill before the line was reassembled and pushed them back. And you have one story that puts the high water mark almost 100 yards further than what the other side claims. And then that's when you go, okay, so which was it? You know,
Well,
there's like, it's really crazy.
Well, we
yeah,
know
and
the victor is the one that's going to write the stories however they see
Exactly.
fit as well. So
Yep.
right, but two, using the language when you talk with Chamberlain after the fact, and he says they never broke the line. Technically, you could argue he is correct because they never held the line.
Correct.
As soon as they took it back. It
Yep.
wasn't, so you could argue by the language of the time, he is correct. They never
Yep.
broke. And the other one is correct too. They did break it, but they couldn't hold it.
Yep.
And so
Exactly.
that's the problem too when you're reading their stories is both of them are correct,
Hmm.
but they don't match because the way they're describing it doesn't match.
Yep.
I,
And that's
I find
hilarious
the
that you bring
same
that up.
thing. I
Sorry,
was
go
going
ahead,
to say,
Michael.
I find the same thing true in archaeology. You have the Battle of Kadesh that Ramses II said he won, and the Hittites had said they won. And what happened was it was a truce. But I
Yeah.
got that from another source. They actually, it was nobody won the battle. They both agreed to disagree, and they also agreed, to shake hands and be neutral. But they lied. Ramses II, if you go look on his on the one of the temples, I think it's the Temple of Edfu of Horus, there's a huge statue, frieze of him, with all these people's hair in his hands and a mace, and he's killing all of them. And that never happened. And it was
Wow.
humongous propaganda, and the Egyptian people were like, "Yay!" And it wasn't true. And the Hittites were saying they slaughtered him and blah 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 blah, and that he died on the battlefield, but he lived to be for another 45 or 50 years. So I don't think he died on the battlefield.
Yeah.
we've been
But
getting
you
a
were gonna
lot of
say
that.
something, Sage, about the what talking about the languaging
Oh yeah.
stories.
Um, I was just recently like reading up on like stuff I'll just randomly find on Facebook and go down a rabbit hole, and I was reading up on personal accounts after the battle, what members of the 20th Maine said about the bayonet charge, and Chamberlain wrote this big all out heroic report that he commanded the charge and ordered the charge and this is how it happened, blah blah blah. And then his second in command came out and goes, no, that's not at all how that happened. This is how it happened. And it became a feud from there on out where you have the second command saying, no, I commanded this half the charge and recommended that we do this to Chamberlain because we were like out of ammunition. And then Chamberlain's going, oh, no, 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 that's not how it happened. I'm the one that commanded everything. And now you have a feud within the one regiment of what actually happened because one getting more favor over the other. And it's just kind of crazy how the words can be twisted just based off of popularity.
Well, that and when you look at Chamberlain, they portray him as this professor,
Mm-hmm.
educated man, no military experience, and look at what he accomplished. And so
Yep.
it's like they tell it that he did this because it paints a more patriotic, like rallying almost kind of story.
Yep.
So that when other soldiers read about, what happened, they're like, oh man, if a professor can do that, we can do that.
Yep. Exactly. And that same story kind of compiles to what happened on top of the summit with two commanders being killed in action, leading said very similar charges to help repel the attacking Texans. And you very little hear about those, but you always hear about Chamberlain on Little Round Top.
Yeah, and Chamberlain wasn't even originally going to be posted there.
Nope.
The commanding general's underling, I think it was the artillery general, said, hey, look at that hill over there. I think we
Yeah.
need to put some troops over there.
Yep.
And they all were like, no. He's like, yeah. And it turned out to be one of the biggest
Yeah.
contested spots. And it was
Yep.
like, yep. And it also, surprisingly, and I'm thinking because he was artillery, he could see it was the biggest communications hub.
Yep.
The flag bearers could relate messages to the whole line in the hook, and
From there.
everybody could respond accordingly. And the Confederates were like, how do they know we're coming? How do they know? Oh, they took that
See
hill
everything.
first.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Confederates had the opportunity, and they say that the general ordered them to take it, but they were like, nope, our soldiers are tired. They need to rest. We'll look at it tomorrow.
Yep.
And by then, the Union took it, and they actually, I think if I'm remembering right, isn't Little Round Top the one where they actually had to push the artillery pieces up onto it?
Yep, they did.
Can you imagine marching there and then having to push these cannons uphill?
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I've walked that hillside and like been up there many, many times, and it is not a easy walk. It's a very steep hillside, and I scratch my head wondering why they even bother trying to march up this steep hillside in the first place, because it's rocky, it's hilly. Like, there's no way that you can make any form of competent troop movement up this hillside without people stumbling and falling. Meanwhile getting shot at by cannons and rifles. So, I mean, I thought that was a lost cause in the beginning.
I haven't done much in the way of real ghost hunts. I was at Waverly Hills Sanatorium with a group of people one time, and people weren't experiencing too much. But at that night, I was standing in the what was it? What room? The morgue, and I felt something kind of like brush the top of my head, like a couple fingers. And I'm not exceptionally tall, so maybe it was a tall ghost, maybe it was a bug, I don't know, but it wasn't anything definitive. So I and I think I mentioned this story before. I was at where the Silver Bridge used to run across to Ohio, the one that collapsed on December 15th, 1967. And a group of us were out there, and there's a couple of the group that were really good at picking up EVPs. You know how it seems like some people are sort of lightning rods for that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not normally, but one of our group, Emily, had set up a flashlight just on the verge of turning on, like the professionals do on TV, right? So we didn't know about it. So all of a sudden, this thing turned on. It's laying there on the shoreline, and it went off. And so we're going around stomping our feet to see if we get a vibrational. We'll turn it on. Nothing would happen. So I thought, okay, I've seen enough of these shows. I know what to do, right? And so I said, if there's anyone here, and by the way, I want to add that everybody was very respectful because of the situation, because of the people that lost their lives there. It wasn't a flippant attitude. So anyway, I said, if there's anyone here, would you please turn the flashlight on at the count of 3? Counted off 3. It went on for 3 beats and then turned off. I was kind of stunned. Now, it could have been a coincidence, but afterwards I said, can I say holy shit now? And everybody kind of laughed, and they didn't have it on a tape, unfortunately, on recorded. And later on, John, one of our group, listened to the tape afterwards. And he said it wasn't a Class A EVP by any means, and he's not absolutely sure, but he thinks he heard a voice say, after I said, can I say holy expletive now? Little baby. So maybe there was a spirit there saying, yeah, this guy's not very manly. He hears a little, the flashlight goes on, and, he gets all freaked out. So that's about it for me with my experiences with ghost hunting.
We got to get you out more, Steve.
Yeah.
Listen, I gotta get out more. Period. Let's put it that way.
Hey, listen, I want to pick everybody's brain now. Okay, so I'm going to go through a list and ask you a few things, and if you want to skip it, that's fine. We'll move on to the next subject. Okay, the Infeld haunting. That was the 1970s poltergeist case that involved that 11-year-old girl. Do you think it was fake, or do you think it was real?
Now, that's the one that happened around the time that The Exorcist came out. The Exorcist came out later, And I remember seeing now Tom Snyder, who used to have a late night show, he had several priests on one night, and they're
I
all talking
remember.
about The Exorcist. And he had the priest on that essentially exorcised the house, and he was being criticized by some of the other priests, saying that it was poltergeist phenomena. It wasn't like a in quotes demonic possession. So it's like aiming a cannon at a parakeet or something like that. That was kind of
Yeah.
their analogy. So and the guy, I wasn't very impressed with the priest that did the exorcism. He seemed to be kind of credulous and so forth. But I got the feeling that from what I've heard that it was a real event. Although I can't give you blow for blow how it unfolded.
But they had that picture of the girl where she's like flying in the air, but there's the bed, and they said all she did was jump on the mattress, and then they snapped that photo, which makes it look like she's floating in the air.
Floating.
When she's not.
I think that's true. That's what they did. I thought the whole thing was a hoax. I really did. A lot of things like that are easily faked. I mean, I work in the entertainment industry, and I do special effects, and it's. And Paul, you're an illustrator, so and you make all those wonderful AI concoctions. You know how to fake things. It's very easy, you know. I don't have any of my equipment with me here, but I can do all kinds of fun things, you know. And I'm great at making masks and other prosthetics. I can make you look really good or really scary. So if they can do that, they can do anything. That's my point.
Yeah, when it comes down to entertainment, you're 100% correct on that. It's there's some truth based on it because every story or everything comes off of some truth, and then they take that and exploit it for entertainment purposes. That's why a lot of these ghost hunting shows do so well. I've never been on an investigation that was like numerous in a row that every single one was off the charts, and I know damn well with all these shows they don't have a week or several days to film. It's one night and that's that, and they don't get anything. That's when they start faking stuff for the entertainment purposes because people want to see stuff happen. So I definitely think that story was based on some truth, but not all.
Well, one thing too we got to consider is not a lot of families, and I'm talking about during the time frame where this has supposedly happened. Not a lot of families had cameras or the money to take a lot of photos and everything. So they could have said this is what it looked like, and they said, oh well, for purposes to document it, can we recreate it? And they did. And so that's possibly what happens too is things are documented after the fact saying this is what it looked like, and so they're like, okay, well now we can document and say this is what it was. So sometimes we got to take that into account, because of the time frame. Where today is somebody goes, oh, we came in and so portrayed this person and had to do this because we didn't have it documented. It's like, well, that's kind of on you because it's pretty easy to document things now. It's your cell phone, your camera,
everybody's got at least 2 cameras on them. It's true. Michael got cameras.
And Michael Waterman's been to Amityville Horror, and a lot of people say that's fake. So, Michael, you've been there.
Yeah, and I was with Hans Holzer, who is a very famous paranormalist.
Yep.
So do you think it was fake?
Let me tell you something. I knew the DeFeo family. I lived in Uniondale, which was 4 towns away from them, and I went to school at Nassau Community College with some of those kids. Michael, I think his name was Michael DeFeo, was stoned off his ass on mushrooms and LSD. And the reason he shot everybody was he had no frigging idea what he was doing, but he regrets it even now. He's still in jail, of course.
Didn't he also try to get his sister involved? Or he said his sister?
But they found him on top of a water tower, laughing his ass off, carrying a shotgun. He didn't know what he was doing. and that wasn't demonic. It was LSD, guys. And the other thing is, there was a lot in the middle of that house. They had a great big walk-in freezer. And the walk-in freezer, by the time everything was happening, nobody bothered because it was behind like a door, and it wasn't really visible unless you knew the house. Well, there was a bunch of meat in there, and it all rotted, and that's where all those damn flies came from. That wasn't demonic or anything. It was goddamn maggots and flies. And Hans and I went in there with all kinds of machinery, and we, as I said, I knew the people, and all the stories that the neighbors told the Lutzes, who were people that afterwards. That's where all that gobbledygook came from. If you knew that family, they were a typical Italian American family, and unfortunately, the guy who was either John or Michael, I think his name is. He was the one that was the black sheep of the family, the one that was on drugs, who drove too fast with the cars, and he was doing everything else. And of course, his father was very rough on him. So if he was stoned, which I believe he was, he had resentment toward his mother, his father, and his two brothers. And that's why he killed them. It had nothing to do with demonic possession at all.
God.
And then
if you go into that house, Sage and Michael, if you go into that house, or Paul, and you put in all kinds of your EVP things and all your other, you'll get nothing. Zero. Because there isn't anything there. It was just plain old murder.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although you might get ghost activity because of the murder, though.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody and his cousin wants the house is on a lake. Everybody and his cousin wants to take a picture of and they changed the two windows in the back so they don't look like demons anymore. They're now square instead of being triangular.
It did have cool windows. I'll give it that.
Oh my God, the house. Yeah. Listen, I would love that house. It's a beautiful home, but everybody still, Halloween day, they all drive by there. They should charge admission. They really would make a lot of money.
That's why legends are legends, because you take a story, it's interesting, it's intriguing, and before you know it, it just multiplies and gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep.
And, I mean, look at The Conjuring. I mean, they took one little story, now it's a huge story, many stories. And Billy the Kid, I mean, his legend is so out there, he's almost godlike.
And John Wilkes Booth also. You talk about the Civil War. There's all kinds of stories about him not dying and that he appeared somewhere. Yeah.
Billy,
I wasn't going to bring it up. I just was reading a lot about that this week. About they said the body that's buried in John Wilkes Booth's plot is actually not him. That he was able to escape, and it was like a person looks like him is who was killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about Amityville, a lot of people, they say the house was haunted. It was the house with the land. And a lot of people don't know that the house was actually relocated to where it now sits. That wasn't its original location.
That's right. And I'm glad you brought that up, Michael, because it's true. It's sitting on a beautiful plot of land, and it's sitting in front of a beautiful man-made lake. It's a lot of baloney. And I was going to say something. I really got mad at Hans, and I told him, Amityville Horror 2, they offered him, I don't know how much money to write that script. And it was, but he did it for the money. He went in there and we're investigating and blah, 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 blah. The second family walked in there. I wanted to brain him. I was so, we were friends for years. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, they offered me like $15 million. And they said, how could I say no?
And Michael, look how many Amityville horror movies they made. I mean, what is it, like 12 movies?
Something I don't remember, but something
it's
ridiculous. Yeah. And the poor town, it's a tiny little town. It's very ordinary otherwise. And the only thing that happens is every Halloween you can't get over that block because it's mobbed.
Well, listen, for $15 million, the next one's going to be Amityville Goes Hawaiian. That'll be a box office bonanza.
Yeah,
Mothman.
I
Elvis
think
meets
that a lot
Elvis
of
meets
times.
Marilyn in Amityville.
We'll have Moondoggy, we'll have Gidget. Of course, there'll be animated corpses, but
And
Oh,
Marilyn
well, we
Monroe
got
meets
CGI to compensate for
Michael
that.
Yeah.
Jackson will do the
But
music with
seriously,
Prince. It'll just be terrific.
Cameo by the Mothman.
Oh yeah.
well, you know what? He's priced out of the market these days. It's gone to his head.
Well, they
That's
have
uh, well,
in Florida. They have the barefoot mailman, which is another Bigfoot. And I'm not so sure about him either. Guys, how do you feel about Bigfoot?
I think that Bigfoot exists.
I
Well,
think
I
it's
think
a,
it's
I was going back to the haunted house thing. I was going to say that a lot of times when you plug these things into people's consciousness, you can conjure up types of beings and spirits. They may not be the exact spirits that you're talking about, but there are entities that will play the characters that you are manifesting. So if we got, I don't know, hundreds and thousands of people that are looking for a particular ghost, there are spirits out there that says, you know what, they're looking for that so and so ghost. I'm going to play that ghost. There's
that's
entities
true.
out there
Yeah.
that will do that, and it will
Mhm.
just kind of embellish it because enough of the consciousness is bringing it up, is bringing it forward. So it may not be like the actual girl that's, walking around a haunted house or an actual boy. It should be another spirit that, decided to take up the role just for the heck of it. Any kind of entities, they will do things like that. A lot of
Mimic.
entities feel that they do need attention because, lonely, bored, maybe they didn't have the best life and they're going to have fun with the afterlife, whatever they do.
Well, some of them
Unfortunately.
may be true cryptids that remain hidden. But if you analyze Stan Gordon's book, Silent Invasion, with these bizarre Bigfoots that showed up in 73 and 74 in connection with strange lights in the sky, Valley of the Skookum by Sally Shepard Wolford. She's the mother of Autumn Williams, a well-known Bigfoot researcher, and all the paranormal events that went on in Washington State. I can't remember the town right now, but there evidently much of this does seem to have paranormal overtones.
oh yeah, and
Sometimes they
Is that C
Oh,
flat?
footprints, sometimes they don't. There was the one in Indiana pounding on houses. They felt breathing on the back of their neck. And eventually they started seeing this thing, but it was translucent. And after a while, it started leaving footprints almost as if it was coming into manifestation. And it even attacked livestock. It didn't eat it, but it killed a bunch of chickens and so forth. So it's like, John Keel talks about this in The Eighth Tower. And he talks about how they just seem to, there seem to be temporal, paraphysical, but they act like animals while they're here, and then they sort of melt away. It doesn't mean that they're all not, some of them may be true cryptids, flesh and blood, unknown, undocumented creature. But there's that would explain why a lot of them, some of them still leave hair samples, but actual physical evidence of body, that's doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen. And the last thing is Barton Nunley wrote a book called Inhumanoids. He calls these things inhumanoids because he does not believe they are actually flesh and blood creatures. There's something else going on. He's probably on a similar page with John Keel.
Now
George Tsoukalos.
check this out. I'm retired from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So I talked to many hunters, many fishermen. And some of the hunters and fishermen claim that when they're over in Mount Shasta is a very mystical mountain, that they have seen Bigfoot. And my boss used to get mad at me because they would be talking Bigfoot talk to me, and my boss would come up to me and say, "Hey, you're not talking about real business, hunting and fishing. You're over here talking about Bigfoot." Well, I couldn't help it. They would watch me on the news, and they knew I knew something about Bigfoot. So, of course, they want to talk to me about it. But this one hunter told me that his brother went out. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. It was his uncle. His uncle that was hunting down in Mount Shasta. He saw Bigfoot. He aimed at it, fired, and it blew up into sparks. So if that was true, that tells me that Bigfoot can be matter, then changes over to energy, energy into matter, E equals MC square. It's an interdimensional type being, probably going through a portal from its reality to our reality. And then you have all these missing people over in Mount Shasta. So there's definitely something going on. And then we had, I talked to this other hunter, and he said that he saw Bigfoot working along with the Greys, and that the Greys had landed their craft by the mountain, and he saw Bigfoot actually doing labor work for the Greys. So there's that connection that when people see UFOs, then they see Bigfoot. When they see Bigfoot, they see UFOs. And when I did my Mount Shasta investigation, I did a wood-on-wood type communication, which Bigfoot does. And I hit the tree 3 times, and right behind me, and I had my investigators right in front of me so I could see them. So make sure there was no tricks. There's 3 rocks that fall into the creek. I believe that I actually communicated with Bigfoot. And then later on, the psychic, which happened to be the secretary of Sylvia Brown, the late Sylvia Brown, she was on my team, and she's psychic. And she says, Paul, take a picture of me. I said, why? And she goes, take a picture of me. There's something behind me. I take a picture of her, and I get a picture of a UFO tilted behind her. And that picture was actually in Timothy Beckley's book. So I submitted that, and I gave him all kinds of information. So there's definitely stuff going on in Mount Shasta.
Well, they say that I have friends that are cryptozoologists, and they think that Bigfoot, yes, does work with the aliens, but is a gigantopithecus. That it may be, I mean, there have been other extinct animals and extinct things that have been found. So it's very possible that this being, and maybe there's many of them, because I mean, what is it, the Eohippus or something? It was supposed to be extinct for 65 million years, and they found them. And the fish, the Pithecanthropus, Zinjanthropus, they're supposed to be gone for millions of years, and they're swimming all over Africa. So, I mean, that's, it's possible.
Well, even at Skinwalker Ranch, they said that one of the scientists that was investigating over there said that he actually witnessed a portal open up in the sky, and from that portal, Bigfoot jumped out and ran off into the woods.
Right, and they saw it. He saw it through night vision goggles, and it was almost like it was crawling through a tunnel. He could see the arms moving like this, and he didn't get a good look at it. But the implication was it was some big, beast like a Bigfoot. And of course, at the Skinwalker Ranch, it was more active in the earlier days, and you know that Sherman, that had the ranch that originally sold it to Bigelow, said, you need to go at this stealthily. Otherwise, you're going to scare away a lot of the paranormal activity. But they didn't. They went through it headlong. And while they did have several events later on, I think it was Colin Kelleher, the main scientist on board. He said, Sherman was right because Sherman would, he would wait for hours looking up in the sky, and then he'd see these kind of big tower-like things that had like an orange opening in them, and he'd see these giant black triangles come out. But he was just very quiet. He was like just one person out there, and so a lot of it, when you see the show now, I really don't think they're faking all of it. A lot of people don't like it, but it just seems like, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where sometimes when you show up, you got cameras and all kinds of equipment, and it's like, okay, we're taking a break. We're going on sabbatical. Good luck capturing these images. While they caught some things, there's a lot that seem to slip through their fingers.
They have a bubble now. They call it a bubble. It's a couple of 1,000 feet up, and they've been
Right.
shooting missiles through it, and the missiles bounce back, and they've been doing things with laser, and whatever it is or whoever it is that created that bubble is trying to say, leave us alone. And that's
And
what they're not getting. And they're drilling down below. They've gotten pieces of their ceramic and pieces of metal. It ruined their bit. I was watching a couple of weeks ago. If that's ceramic, there's no way you can actually determine the age of a piece of ceramic because it's been heated. And it's
Yeah.
everything, whatever was in it, the mud, whatever it is long since dried and destroyed. So I don't believe when they say those things, they're making all kinds of suppositions. I get that when I hear ancient alien theorist George Tsoukalos. He goes on and on and on about things, and they assume it in its gospel, and that's not true. You can't do that. We can guess, but we can't say ancient alien theorists say that this is true because it's not. We can't say that.
also too, everybody, World Bigfoot Central 3933. He says, "Hey, Skinwalker Ranch, I was there last fall. Filmed an entity flying along a ridge." Also too, let World Bigfoot Central. I've also too been a Skinwalker Ranch. I went to the Utah Basin where Skinwalker Ranch is. I wasn't physically at the ranch, but
Okay.
I was actually at the basin where the ranch is, and I actually experienced some stuff over there.
Yeah, well, I have a friend that was connected to, like, I guess, groups of people that keep an eye on Bigfoot. One of the things I learned, though, well, I believe it was John D'Souza who is for the X Files, is the FBI, ex FBI agent, and the X Files show is based on his files. I believe he was the one that told me that if you see like a couple of orange lights start to appear, that's the portal starting to open. That's Bigfoot's portal. Other people that I have talked to that are in some sort of connection with Bigfoot and the groups and stuff, they have told me, I think a few years ago, when Portland, Oregon had that fire that was literally engulfing everything, it was going through everybody's windows and stuff. Around that year, um, there was like some sort of a lightning that was going off, but no thunder with it. And somebody said that that was a battle going on between Bigfoot and some other entity. We don't know what, but the Bigfoot side won. They do have a shipyard. They have many, many shipyards. I was told that they live very similar to, I guess, if you want to say something like the Ewoks. They live in the woods type of situation, and they live in simple type houses and stuff outside, and they have bridges connecting them and stuff. But they also have modern technology attached to it, like monitors, screens, computer type stuff, iPad like things and stuff like that. So they do have a modern way of living as well as natural way of living. They do, if you actually see lightning with no thunder, and that's usually a battle, especially if you see a cloud in front of it. And usually they use clouds to cover it up. Um, that's actually the battle's going on, and then you see if you actually start seeing the sky do color phases, like it does gray, and then it's kind of a white, and then it goes back to a really dark gray, and then it goes back to sort of a white, and it just like tones back and forth, then that means there's something shifting and something beginning with the ships phasing in and out. So yeah, I have never seen Bigfoot personally, but I've seen the sky react very odd ways, and it makes me wonder,
I was
what's
going to
going
tell
on.
you, Sue, a couple of weeks ago, my housemate and I were sitting by, well, it sounds very decadent. We were sitting by the pool in the cabanas where I live, and the clouds were going by. It was going to rain. The clouds are going to the left, And then all of a sudden, this one cloud, which was, I think, denser than the others, was going in the other direction. And it couldn't possibly do that. So I knew there was something in that, or that cloud was a ship being made to look like a cloud.
Yeah.
I'm
So
very
It's like
sure.
a
I
interesting
actually
phenomenon, like
found
Bermuda
something.
Triangle.
Yeah, I found something very interesting about cryptids in the Columbia River Gorge. And I don't know if you all are familiar with this, but so in the 1940s, and there's a reason I'm telling it this way, a scientist figured out how to make a fish twice the size, meaty, and able to reproduce faster. He was, trying to help people not starve. The government taps him and says, we need to protect this nuclear facility. The dolphins cannot operate in this water because it's not salt water, because the ocean is salt water, so they're protecting the access there. And they said, we need you to create this. And so he goes, okay, and starts creating cryptids, super soldier animals. The Department of Energy in the 40s puts out an article and says, hey, we have some super crocs that have escaped from this facility. Do not approach. They will, retaliate. And they are genetically modified. We have created them. Let us know if you see them. So it was interesting to me that the Department of Energy in the 40s puts out an article saying, we are making super soldier animals to protect the nuclear facility here, and they got away from us. Sorry, let us know if you see them. I'm like, my jaw dropped when I came across it because I was like, when has the government ever announced and admitted to doing something?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, real big central. He says, I saw a glowing orange storm cloud raining down lightning bolts in an otherwise clear sky. I found out later a major cryptid fight was going on there at the time. The Sasquatch shaman won the fight. Um,
Yeah, it's probably that battle.
yeah, and you know what's kind of interesting too. I hear sometimes when people talking and when they watch Blind Frog Ranch or they
Yes.
watch
Hmm.
Secrets at Skinwalker Ranch, and they said, "Oh man, I wish I could go to Skinwalker Ranch." Man, all you have to do is go to the basin where these two ranches are. That whole basin has paranormal activity going on.
It's
So,
not just the ranch. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Well,
not
yeah.
just the ranch. Yeah, get it.
Well, you just have to look up because I walked outside of my parents' house one day, and I tell this story of I look and something tells me to look up because my house is like a 2 minute drive away, and above where my house area is a single cloud that has like a burst of reddish orange and a burst of bluish, greenish color. And I'm like, those are laser blasts. That is not ball lightning. That is not lightning. And there's only one single cloud in the sky while this is happening and these little bursts going. And I walked inside and I said to my mom and dad, I go, hey, do you guys want to see a UFO battle? And they go, my mom's like, yeah. So she comes outside and she sees it. And a lot of people, say to me, "Oh, well, did you film it? What'd you get on your camera?" And I was like, I never thought to get my phone out or a camera out while this was happening. So sorry, guys, I don't have any evidence of this, but I do have the memory and what I saw. So I would agree with Sue. And it was interesting that my mind automatically went to this is a UFO battle.
Yeah, they will actually do what's called dimension fighting. Dimension fighting is if you guys ever, this is the best description of it. If you ever taken a bubble wand and blow a bunch of bubbles and they kind of, collect on the wand. So if you take the middle bubble, that would be the center point, that would be us. All the other bubbles would be the different dimensions. So if the lightning looked like it's coming from the ground, which wouldn't be normal, it's usually supposed to come from the sky. But if it looked like it's coming from the ground or coming from, horizontal directions and stuff like that, that's because it's being shot from somewhere else. That's not shot from the sky. It's actually dimension fighting. You'll see that the pattern is looks almost unnatural.
Well,
That's how
actually,
you know it's a
Sue,
battle.
lightning does come from the ground and the sky, and where they connect is what the spark and what forms the light. They've actually
Yeah,
shown that
but
in experiments.
that's what they tell you.
No,
That's
I
what
know.
they tell you.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
when you said,
Well,
it doesn't come from the
well,
ground, I'm
the
like, it
natural the
actually,
natural lightning does not do it, but the artificial ones do. That's what I was trying to tell you the difference from it. Because they will teach you what you just said, but because they're trying to cover up the battles that happen.
yeah. I
So
mean,
that's
I'm gonna look
yeah.
like a complete asshole just looking at the sky now when I go outside.
Mm.
I have felt electricity coming off the ground, I will admit, and then lightning starts to appear. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's you know, do we ever really know what actually is going on? No. Could it
No,
be
because
both
weather
ways? It could.
modification.
It's like,
Yeah,
we
weather. A
could
lot of weather
argue
things.
all day,
Yeah.
I did a show last night where I was talking to someone about the astral realm, and she's like, "Yeah, I had a show where I talked about the science and what all the science says about it." Well, tonight my guest is an experiencer. So we're going to share his experiences versus the science. And it's like, yeah, that's where it gets interesting. It's like, do experiences and science match? Sometimes, not always. Who's
Yeah.
right? Who knows? But people are like starting to go, well, the experiencer may be a little more correct than the science because they actually witnessed and experienced. They're not in a lab going, well, we hypothesized this and therefore it is. We were able to prove it and duplicate it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that doesn't make it fact.
No.
Versus,
Listen, I've been doing astral projection since I was 3, and I'll tell you why. When we moved from Brooklyn to Uniondale, I had my own. I finally got my own room. My mother and father had my brother, the little baby. He was months old in that room with me, and I yelled, "Mommy, mommy!" It was the first or second day we were there. Mommy, mommy, I've got to go to the bathroom, and I didn't know where the bathroom was yet. I was 3. My mother said, it's next to your room. Just get up. I felt my energy get up. I turned on the light in the hallway, Michael. I turned the light on. Okay. I walked into the bath. I felt my body going into the bathroom. I woke up soaked, Michael, because I left my body in the bed. And that, my mother, if she was alive, she would prove that for you. Okay. And after that, I found a guide. His name is Soren Siti. I've had him since I was a child, and he takes me wherever I need to go. He's a spirit guide. We'll talk more about him soon. But I know about astral projection. Another thing, I went into the past, into ancient Greece, and I was told by my ancient history teacher, describe a day in the life of somebody in Athens. And I told her all this stuff about what was going on in that street. And she said, "Oh, Michael, you sound like you were there." Guess what? I was. I had been there the night before. I had seen what a day in ancient Athens looked like, to the last pebble on the ground.
Very good. Very good. Hey, does everybody want to move on to the next subject?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And we can skip it if nobody wants to talk about it. The Havana syndrome. I've always been kind of curious about that, where people
Yeah.
have neurological symptoms. They get headaches. They feel dizzy. They got ear pressure, ringing in the ears. What the hell is going on?
So
I
Um,
think they're
that is
being
I think it's
actually a CIA
energy.
psyop.
Yep.
They have admitted to it. They've seen, they've released the paperwork about it, and the if you remember the voice of God, where people are saying, "Oh, I'm hearing, voices in my head." The CIA said, "Yeah, that we found out in Havana this worked, and now we're using it this way." And it's like that's where they're combined. They're actually the same experiment, the same test, and the problem is our agencies love to test new equipment out on the civilians without telling them, because they need, quote, real response to know what is going to happen. And it's like, this is so incredibly wrong that they do that. But this is where they found out that if they do one frequency, it caused people to get nauseous. If they do another frequency, then people started vomiting, or people got the runs. And it's famous, in music, you can put the brown
The
note in, they
brown
call it.
note, yeah.
But
And
so, how do you explain someone like Joan of Arc, who had voices in her head, she could literally hear the people she thought were saints? It's the same
well,
thing. Joan of Arc heard the voices of Saint Catherine, Saint I think it was Barbara, and the Virgin Mary. Three different female voices, and they were
right,
distinct. I read her transcripts, so three different distinct voices. And she
right.
was.
And
And do you think that the Catholic Church was somehow programming or had technology back in what was it, the 1300s, that they were actually to able to do that to her?
well, it just like extraterrestrials, right? They're able to communicate with you, and you hear their voices in your mind. So
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe Joan of Arc, she was hearing a higher power in her mind. So yeah,
yeah,
that's what I believe.
But the technology is actually older than they're going to admit. I think it's been around for a very long time because it's not just one of our technologies, it's an ET technology. So it's been around for a long time and it's been improved over time because that's why you get different frequencies, different reactions. People, hearing things. They can actually do all kinds of suggestions. They can tune it to for an entire village, or they can narrow it down to one person.
yeah.
We have seen that
It-
technology
it-
being used on the one astronaut. I think I forgot her name, but she was going to stand there and she was thinking of admitting what she saw on one of her missions or something like that. And they were trying to knock her out to shut her up. And she
yeah,
eventually passed out. So they
I
can
saw
mess
that
with,
video.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they can, if they want to, mess with one person, they can. They can mess with the whole village. They
So
can mess with the whole town, mess with the whole city if
also
they want.
though, yeah, we got to look at, like, was it? I'm hoping I don't confuse, because I do have dyslexia, the time frame, but the Persian Gulf. I think it was the Gulf one, where the second time we were there, how we were able to move in like a week and take over the country, and the soldiers were surrendering before we even really showed up. They announced that they had sent sound waves and messages through the sound frequencies to the Iraqi soldiers and said, "You're going to surrender." And sure enough, as soon as the tanks started rolling in, they were like, "Hey, we're done. You guys got us."
You
Apparently the
know,
soldiers learned how to tune that out these days.
I actually met a woman who claimed that she had telepathy powers, and she told me to think something, and so I thought something, and she actually got it right. So my mind was blown. So
Yeah.
I do believe that it exists because it's energy,
course.
And energy can be transmitted from one brain to the other brain.
But it
When
comes
I
through
worked
in
with my
different.
There's not
Um,
just one way to do it. There's more than one way. You
Yeah.
can have it done
guys,
naturally and with technology.
Listen, when I
I
work
hate
with
to
my
interrupt,
clients on
but
the
I gotta
phone,
step away because I got a show in 15 minutes.
Oh
we
yeah,
all do.
So thank you guys
Michael,
for
Michael, we will
having me
see.
on.
Yeah, we will see
Michael,
you on
Sue,
there.
Sue, you got to leave too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, in about
Michael,
a
and
minute.
Sue.
Yeah, Sue,
Yeah.
Michael are leaving.
I can stay another 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can as well. I
I'd
know how
love
to do
to,
real quick.
but my guest is waiting for me, and so you
Yeah.
can find. I'll just do this for you, Paul, real quick. You can find me on Facebook, on Paul's show. You can find me on his new show. Let me see if I get this right.
All things
Paul's
paranormal. All
Pop
things.
Culture Podcast.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And other panels that he has and Hercules's panels. So thank you all. And you can find me on Facebook under my name. So have a wonderful show, everyone.
We'll see you
All right.
soon.
Thank you, Michael. Thank
Thanks,
you
Mike.
for being on. Thank
As
you.
for me, you can get me at Michael K. Waterman on Facebook. You can reach me at Michael K at today'switch.net. You can get me on TikTok as Setna underscore Kamwaset, which is a hard name to pronounce. Or you can get me at Phona Wizard on Facebook. And I'm also going to vanish. Life, health, and prosperity, everybody. And I'll speak to you soon. It was a pleasure working with all of you.
Like
Good night.
always, sir. Yep.
Thank you, Michael.
You're most welcome.
Sue, you're leaving too, right?
Yeah, I can. You want to kick me out?
If you want to kick me out.
How
kidding, I'm
how
kidding.
can people contact you?
You can contact me on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, known as X now. I'm on Instagram. I'm under my name, Sue McClure, right there, and spelled S-O-O McClure. And I am also on. You can also email me at SueLightworker@gmail.com, and you can message me on Messenger. Anybody can contact me, make an appointment if they like. And I love everyone very much. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Sue.
But I have
Yeah.
to say, Sue, you're not going to get paid for a full show. We're
Shit.
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You know what?
Anyway,
I'll call it a charity work.
Okay.
Thank
See you next
Sue.
time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna change hats. That freaked Michael out.
All right, you guys. So it's just the three of us.
What a quick thing, Paul. These manifestations come through in different ways. My ex-wife's grandmother, when someone was about to die, she didn't necessarily know who it
I'm
was,
so bad.
but she would hear gospel music and constantly in her head and, until that person passed. So it was just kind of like nonstop.
No.
Wow. Well, you guys, it's the three of us. You want me to go through my list real quick?
Sure.
Whatever you want to do. I'm fine with that.
Have you guys heard about the dog calling bridge? In 1950, dogs become very aggressive as they approach this bridge, and they jump off the bridge to their death. And over 100 dogs have jumped off this bridge. And there is a ghost there. It's called the White Lady of Overton. Have you guys heard about that? And what do you think is causing these dogs to jump over the bridge?
See, I personally haven't heard about this, but I can work on a theory just based off of what you just said, because I have learned that animals are very susceptible to seeing spirits, quite like psychic mediums like myself and are able to do of visually seeing an entity. And something like that almost sounds like this said spirit is in a way provoking the animal and is the one that's leading the animal to jump off the bridge. So, I mean, that would be a working scientific theory based off of what you just said.
Yeah, they're very, very sensitive animals. There is even cases where there's some paranormal phenomena taking place at the Skinwalker Ranch, for example.
Yep.
There was a cattle mutilation, and then a couple nights later, they were tracking down. This was back in the Bigelow days. They were tracking down some kind of cryptids. They could only this kind of see in the shadows. One was up in a tree, one was below the tree. One left kind of one bizarre footprint, but the dogs were reacting to it. Conversely, there's been other cases where the dogs kind of got real quiet when there was some kind of a manifestation going on. So I don't know if it was fear or whatever, but maybe it's some kind of sensitivity either way. But so there's obviously people should pay attention to things like that because, again, animals, well, animals so that sometimes they sense earthquakes ahead of time and so forth. So people should really pay attention to that kind of thing.
And they have exceptional hearing. My dog can hear the mailman come down from the beginning of the street. They can hear him and they start barking. That is just so odd. And I feel sorry for those poor dogs that jumped over that bridge.
Absolutely.
Okay, the next one is the Lost Roanoke Island Colony.
Roanoke, I think.
Roanoke. 15th century Sir Walter Raleigh got this thing going, and on a tree, the 117 men and women vanished. And then the only evidence they found was a tree with Croatian written on it. What happened? What do you think happened to those people?
Well, I heard something recently on a show that sounded credible, but I can't remember the source. But they finally did track down that suggestion that was quite many miles away. It seems like they had run out of food and so forth, so they migrated elsewhere. And there was some evidence, tenuous evidence, that they had moved there, but I can't pull the details out of my head. Maybe you guys know, but it doesn't seem like it was paranormal. It seems like it was of necessity, and I wish I knew the source so I could check it out. And because maybe it was on one of Josh Gates's shows, one of his segments.
Yeah.
But it sounded credible. It sounded like maybe that's what happened. But there's so little evidence left in a situation like that from that time period. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I heard that they came together with whatever Indian tribe there was there,
right?
And it's sort of like a melting pot and become one,
right? So at least it's better than thinking that they all were slain or starved to death or whatever.
You would think that there'd be evidence of that if that was the case. I mean, whether it was a native attack or starvation, whatever.
Right.
You would think there'd be evidence somewhere.
But that had to be creepy. I mean, showing up there and then to have, it's just like the opening of every horror movie,
That's very true.
Okay, this one, I don't know if you guys heard of it. The Flannan Island Lighthouse disappearance of 3 men. And they worked at the lighthouse. No bodies were ever found. The station was deserted. There was an unlit fire. The clocks had stopped at a certain time, and there was a meal there that was uneaten. Where did those 3 lighthouse workers go?
See, I hate to bring it up and be that guy, but my honest opinion is alien abduction, because I know especially on lakes and bodies of water is where craft are very popular to seen going in and out, especially in my neck of the woods, sort of in Lake Michigan, and even on like the coast of Wisconsin, Sheboygan. There's always reports of seeing craft shooting up out of the water like a ballistic missile, and even sometimes in the reverse motion of the craft coming back down into the water and vanishing. And there's a lot of strange phenomena that happens on the water like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were abducted and just vanished from the earth.
And water does seem to be a factor. David Politis of Missing 411. Fascinating stuff. And there's a whole list of things that are similar to the other disappearances. And one, it has to do with bodies of water, whether it be streams, swamps, or lakes or whatever. But Politis has always believed that there's more than one answer to these things. Some there's even some suggestion that people fall into vortexes or portals or whatever. But it's really, whenever I read a missing 411 book, I make sure I'm in a restaurant in daylight, and I don't read them at night. I don't read them alone. Call me crazy, but it's just some of the disappearances are so disturbing. But the ones that are even more fascinating are the ones that are retrieved. Sometimes young children that have covered like 17 miles over mountain ranges, and they're found a couple days later in pretty good shape. And sometimes even some of the adults that the children that come back can't really seem to describe what happened to them. Some of them are a little bit, have some kind of issues where they might be mentally challenged or whatever. Some are just too young to kind of express what happened to them. And even some adults become very vague about what happened. And it's very, very interesting because it's some of the issues are very similar to fairy lore and what even Politis touches on that. When you're out picking berries, man, look out. You're supposed to bring bread with you so that if the little people show up, you can offer them bread or whatever. There was just one a young man in Newfoundland who brought those traditions from across the ocean, that he went out berry picking, didn't bring the bread with him. He disappeared for 2 or 3 days. When he came back, they found him. He was okay, but he was kind of in a stupor and couldn't explain what happened to him.
Wow. And listen, guys, we got about 5 minutes left. We got one more. Bell Witch Haunting, where John Bell's wife was tortured by an entity and a disembodied voice of a female saying that she was going to kill John Bell. Do you guys think, that story is like a big legend. Do you think it's true or not true?
I think it's true. Tim Beckley did a book on the Bell Witch, and also Small Town Monsters did a documentary.
Yep.
And again, trying to remember, pull out of my memory, there was a lot of paranormal activity there that kind of parallel other things. It wasn't just the Bell Witch poltergeist or whatever it was. It was far stranger than that. So I think it was a real event.
I definitely agree with you there. When I was out in Nashville some years ago, I actually met a guy that was playing at one of the bars, and he's out from the Franklin area and is very familiar with the Bell Witch story. And I asked him about it, and he said the events were real. The story is based on what happened, but just like any other good legend, it was exaggerated to an extent. And that's all he had to say about it. And when I kind of looked into myself, I could see what he meant about how the entertainment industry took their little liberty with the story, but the story itself is actually 100% real.
Fantastic. You guys, you did wonderful today. Thank you for staying all the way to 6. Steve Ward, how can people contact you?
Facebook, Steve Ward, type in Point Pleasant, as in West Virginia, and you'll probably find me. Come and see me on Saturdays at the Mothman Museum. And definitely show up the third weekend in September at the Mothman Festival. I'll be running around doing MC work and won't be able to talk very much, but you can also come and see me on the Mothman Hayride on Saturday night, if you dare. And one other quick thing, see that, Paul? You didn't need those other guys. You can cut their salaries and give Sage and I an extra bonus.
That's right.
I love it. Yeah, I'll do that. Sage, how can people contact you?
Absolutely. You can find me as I put my paranormal team name with my caption today, the Steel City Ghost Chasers. Type that in on TikTok and Instagram, and you'll find me quite easily. Or you can just search my name, Sage Gatto, and you'll find me on Facebook as well. Please feel free to reach out and talk about anything. I'm always checking my phone. So anybody who wants to talk about history or ghosts, I'm your guy.
And Paul, just don't tell the other guys I said we don't need them. I don't want them coming to my. I don't want to face the consequences.
All right. And listen, if you contact me, just look at your local police blotter. Okay. Thank you, guys, everybody. Donnie Cho, I know you're out there. You can shut her down. This is a wrap.
Somewhere in the realm.
Good show. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Born from shadow, sealed in truth, ancient blood, but faith rooted proof. History whispers, legends pretend.